Hello and welcome to Cocktails with BT. I am super excited, as you can obviously tell from my voice, because sitting with me today in the studio is an absolutely phenomenal, amazing woman who I really, really admire. She's a relationship expert. She's a teacher. I normally tell her that she has wisdom far beyond her years. Like she has ancient wisdom, ancient wisdom.
Thank you.
She's a wife, she's a mama. There's something she normally says, or there's something that she says she teaches highly successful women. I know I'm gonna get it wrong now, but teaches highly successful women to wait gracefully, enjoy their single season, and enjoy their married season when they do get into that. So
Yes.
Yay! Without further ado, it gives me much joy to say a warm welcome to my friend, my sister, Bunmi Oduah. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like this conversation is long overdue.
Yes.
We've been saying it for like forever, and then it's like finally, we finally got to it.
Yes. Really excited. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming on and just sitting with me to have this conversation. I know your days right now are amazing.
They're interesting. I think that's the only way to put it.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. So we're going to delve right into it. And the very first thing I'm going to ask you is to tell us a bit about, well, I know a bit, but I want our listeners to know a little bit about your waiting story. So today we're speaking all about waiting gracefully for those who are coming on. And I'd just like you to start by sharing your waiting story with us, your waiting journey.
Thanks, Budam. Thank you for having me, first of all. Because it's a question I'm very passionate about. It's a question I love talking about. I love sharing about. Like, if you wanted me to talk for ages, just ask me about waiting gracefully and about anything that has to do with that season of life, but also anything that has to do with the Bible. I think I should put that caveat there. Like, those are the two topics that you're likely to get me just going on and on. And then apart from that, I'm like generally quiet. And you're like, why is she quiet? I'm like, because I'm not talking about things I like. So thank you for asking about that question. And when I think about my waiting journey, I would say my waiting journey started in my early 20s. I as you do, went to school, went to uni, then finished uni. And I remember, and it's always my starting point when people ask me about my journey. I had finished university. I was waiting to go for what they call NYSC, where you go and serve your government for 1 year. As far as I'm concerned, that's what you go and do there. But actually, as you do, I feel like sometimes NYSC is like a thing where they literally take you from your comfort zone and throw you out of your comfort zone to see if you will survive. So yes, I went to do NYSC and I was waiting to do NYSC, and I happened to go for this family function, and this guy walks up to me and he says to me much later, after we started dating, that when he walked up to me, he came with the mindset that he was going to marry me. And I was like, wow. So up to that point, I just dated for dating's sake. I wasn't necessarily dating to get married. And so when he came up to me, he was very, intentional. He was very smart. He was very chatty, everything. And we exchanged, as you do, you exchange numbers, all of that. And then we started this relationship, and he was very clear from the beginning that he wanted to get married. Now, I was just coming out of university, but being a Nigerian girl, that thing of, there's a trajectory your life is supposed to follow. So my life was already, it felt like my life was already being mapped out for me, in that I went to school. So I went to primary school, I went to secondary school, I did university. And I was, at that point, I was actually doing a temp job. So I technically had a job. And then this guy comes up to me. So the next best thing is, let's get married. And we started this relationship, but after some years, it became obvious that we were not meant to be together. And at that point in time, he had proposed, so people knew that we were engaged and all of that, and there was all that whole cloud around it. But got to a certain point, I knew that relationship wasn't going forward, and the relationship broke it down. And he had sparked something in me, because while I was dating him, he was getting his own place. He had just moved. He was sharing with friends at one point, and he was getting his own place. So he had asked me to, pick out the colors of the sofa, the walls, everything. So I had gone into wife mode. So in my mind, it just felt like this is the thing that's supposed to happen. And from then on, I wanted to get married. So every guy I met, I was like, are you a potential husband? Are you the one I'm going to get married to? All of that. And it was an interesting journey. I kissed a lot of frogs, let's be honest. None of them turned to Prince Charming in the process. And then I think I got to about 2012. I met this guy in 2005. So there's about a 7-year window. I think I got to about 2012. And no, let me take a step back. We broke up in about 2009. And something, even though I knew I wanted to get married, I started listening to some messages. And I think that was where my journey of transformation started. And I didn't even know it was a journey of transformation and it would lead me here. All I knew was that I liked everything that had to do with relationships. I'd always liked that. I'd read romance novels when I was younger. I used to even write stories, like short stories, and I would write romance stories, obviously. And it's only now in hindsight, I realize that I've always been drawn to relationships. And, so when I started listening to the messages about relationships and about doing relationships properly, something started to tick in my head that maybe I can do it different. But even though I was a church girl and knew everything, I had just given my life to Christ while I was dating my ex as well. So I kind of was new to the born again life and, that new life in Christ. So I kind of I was still doing things the old way, but I was trying to mix it with the new thing that I knew. And it just wasn't working. You can't mix the two. It wasn't working. So listening to the messages, I would think, okay, yeah, that sounds great. But then my old ways would still say, yeah, but we can still date him and sleep over at his place, so far as we don't do anything wrong, right? So, I was trying to do the nice thing, but at the same time, my old ways were holding me back. And the journey continued for years. And then I got to about 2012 and my dad passed away. And at that point, I thought to myself, there must be more to life than this. And it really was it was like my shift, where I didn't just want to do Christianity. I wanted to do a life that made sense. Because what people said about my dad when he died and the conversations that they were having with us, I was like, he had such impact, like he had such, when my older sister said something, that did we notice that at his funeral on a Thursday, I think it was, my church seat 700, all seats were taken and people were standing at the back. And I lived with him and I didn't know that he had that kind of, I knew that people knew him, but I didn't think that he had that kind of impact. And so that started to shift something in my mind. Now, because I've been listening to these messages, it kind of started to, the two now started to come together, where I was thinking, okay, my life has to matter for something. And I also knew that my waiting season is not a waste of time. And I need to be filling it up with messages like this. And I need to be living a life of intention. And that's what really then got me on the journey of transformation. And I mean the actual transformation that needed to happen. And so that went on for a number of years. And then in 2013, God gave me an instruction. He said to me, leave your church and go to another church. And I thought, yeah, okay. Right. But I had started learning to hear God's voice. So I kind of knew that he was definitely saying something. And so I thought, okay, I will do that. Doesn't make sense, but I'll do it anyway. So I started going to this church, joined, volunteered. And in 2014, I met this guy. Didn't think anything of it. We were in the same team. Didn't think any of the team that I was volunteering in at the time. Didn't think much of it. Just, he was just a regular guy. And then in early 2015, a friend of mine calls me on the phone, and I always say to women on the waiting journey that you have to have encounters with God, because they will give you a conviction that you need. In 2014, I had my first encounter specifically about my marriage. Well, I had a few dreams, but God was like, okay, let me unpack those dreams for you. And in 2014, God said to me, look, I'm sorting out your marriage. Don't worry about it. And from that point, I never prayed and said, God, give me a husband. I stopped asking for a husband. Literally stopped praying about it. I was like, well, if he said it, then it's done.
Yes.
So then got to 2015, my friend calls me on the phone and says to me, hi, I had this vision. She's prophetic. She's a prophet. So she was like, I had this vision and I saw this guy. And it's obvious that your marriage is literally a settled matter. Do you want us to pray about it? And I was like, sure, no problem. Prayed about it in January. And then in February, this guy who was my friend suddenly says, hi, what do you think about you and me? I'm like, huh? Where did that come from? Because, he hadn't given off signals that he was interested in me that way. So I didn't think anything of it. So when he called me on the phone, I just thought he was calling for us to just talk as normal. And then he drops this conversation drops this bombshell in the conversation. And 14 months later, I was his wife.
Wow.
From that day, yeah. Almost exactly 14 months later, I was his wife, yeah.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. That is a story that had me smiling so much in so many places. Gosh, thank you for sharing, Bunmi. Okay, so I really like what you said, this thing around impact and intention, and just really living our lives with that. And I know a lot of women sort of hold back everything, waiting until they get married so they can fully step into what it is they were created to be, especially African women. We don't want to be too much. We don't want to be too much. We don't want to show up too much. We don't want anything that's too much, right? Until we have husbands that come and give us permission. Who are feeling this way, like, you know what, Bunmi, I hear you, Buddha, I hear what you're saying, but I just need to, I'm getting older. I don't want to be so showy because I might intimidate people, or, I just want to just live this quiet life until my husband comes, and then I will step into everything I was created. Yeah, what would you say to these women?
I would say, why? Like, why are you acting small? Because that's not who you are. So it's not even an authentic thing, and you will struggle. That thing within you that wants to rise and wants to thrive is really God on your inside saying he wants to fully express himself. And then you want to shrink that. It's an insult to him, and it's an insult to you. And it's an insult to the man that he has for you. Because the man that he has for you wants you the way that you are. He wants you fully thriving. My husband and I have a running joke about how he had this desire to marry this particular kind of woman. And I ticked quite a few of the boxes. But one of the things I didn't tick was I didn't have my own flat. Because in his mind, he was so convinced that if I had my own flat, then we would have this second house that would be an additional source of income for our family. It was not a bad thing. It was going to be a good thing. And the truth is that the man that God has for you and the man that you're meant to be with, truly meant to be with, wants you to be thriving. It is that woman that's thriving that he's attracted to. So this version of you that's shrinking is probably repelling him. So for all you know, you might have met him, but because you are shrinking and not trying to be who you're meant to be, he can't see you. The Bible talks about it in Genesis when it says that Adam saw Eve and he was like, yeah, I recognize you. I see you. There's something about you that I immediately recognize. And when you shrink who you are literally making yourself less than. And he can't recognize you. So don't do it, is my simple answer. Don't do it. It's an insult to the God who created you and wants you thriving and flourishing in this season. It's an insult to you because there's so much within you that you need to offer to the world. And then it's an insult to the man that's looking for you that is now literally still waiting because you have refused to thrive. So don't do it.
Bam, bam, bam. Like what? Is what I'm hearing. This is so, just don't. I love that, Bunmi. Thank you. And I like how you really broke it down. It's not just an insult to God, but you're doing a disservice to your actual self. And he can't even recognize you, the real person who's meant for you. Thank you so much for that. Now, there's a challenge that a lot of people struggle with, right? And that is, let's say they're a woman, they're thriving, they're doing all this great stuff. But then there are days when, there's some of the challenges. It's not just a challenge. And I'm going to mention 2 or 3 so you can sort of speak to it. There are days when, for example, you deal with the thing of loneliness. And the fact that, maybe I just want someone to talk to. Some people just tell me, I just want someone that at the end of the day, I can just pick up the phone and just share my worries. And I don't want it to be a girl. I want someone that can just share and let them understand and let them, there's that one. There's a challenge of, maybe everybody around you is married, or everybody, maybe your circle of friends, they've all got married. You're the last man standing, and you're like, Lord, when now you're no longer going for weddings because everybody has finished marriage. You're now going for like baby naming ceremonies.
Yeah.
And then you're going for, I don't know, graduations, and you're going for all these type of things, and you're thinking, what is going on? And I think there's a mental thing that needs to happen there. And how would you, in your experience, how would you say women need to handle some of these challenges? And there are many more, I know, that we do.
Yeah. The first thing I would say is make your peace with where you find yourself. Because when you make your peace, you struggle less. So you're the last man standing. Make your peace with that. You come home and you can't talk to someone, or the kind of conversations you want to have, you can't have them right now. Make your peace with that. But I also know that loneliness is a connection problem. And so if I'm feeling lonely, I find ways to make connection. As much as you're like, yes, I want it to be with a guy, you won't always have that opportunity, and you need to not dwell in it for a long time. There's nothing wrong with feeling lonely. The problem is when it becomes a persistent thing. It shows that you are not connecting, and you need to connect with people. Do you know, the more I started embracing life on my journey, the more I started going out with other people that weren't even in my usual sphere of influence. Remember, I said I changed churches. So I suddenly changed the sphere of people who were around me. I changed the circles that I was in. The more I started engaging with this new part of my life, the less lonely I felt. I actually felt the times I felt lonely gradually started reducing. What had happened, and because I lived alone, I was a single girl who was living alone, who was working. So you could almost say this, my circle of my triangle was work, church, home, work, church, home. And that triangle can become very, very lonely unless you break out of it. And it is within your own gifts to break out of it. It's within your gift to break out of it. And you can break out of it by changing the circle of friends that you have around you, by engaging with people that you would not normally engage with. So I'm not saying ditch your married friends. Don't ditch them. Still build connections with those who want to build connection with you, because not everyone wants to build connection with you. So choose wisely and build connection with those who still want to give you that access into their lives. Why? Because you will also learn about marriage by watching them. You will learn what you like. You will also learn what you don't like. But then in breaking that triangle, find opportunities to do new things. Many times we stay stuck and we stay lonely because we don't try anything new. The thing is that you never know where you're going to meet your spouse. For all you know, it might be in that volunteering opportunity that you meet him. It might be you going out to dinner one day, or you regularly taking yourself out to dinner. And this particular guy now notices that you come every week. And he's like, I want to step to this lady because, there's something interesting about a girl that takes herself to dinner. So do things that begin to break that triangle, because when you start to do that, you will find out that the loneliness reduces. It doesn't completely disappear, because we all still have that innate desire to be with that special someone. But what you have then is fewer and further moments where you are constantly lonely. That's one of the ways that I found that as you start to do those things, you begin to break out of the shell. And the African woman, if you're listening to me, especially if you're the African woman who has the opportunity to be in the diaspora, can I speak specifically to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Break out of your African culture. Because you never know where you are going to meet your spouse, and you never know who you might meet. The problem is that we've restricted ourselves and said, I'm only going to marry from a certain tribe. I'm only going to marry from a certain group. So we never really fully explore other cultures. And for all you know, the man that God has for you, the type of man that God has for you, because there's not just one man for you, the type of man that God has for you could be white. He could be...
You're breaking something. You just broke something. I need you to say it again, because, I just need you to repeat that again. So you said
It's not one man for you. It's a type.
People's belief systems right about now.
But it's a type. It's a type. The type of man that God has for you. If you think of him like a cloak, there are many men that can wear that cloak. There are many that can wear that cloak, and you will be happy, and you will be in purpose and God's will for your life. So let's not hold ourselves back and say, well, the reason I'm not married yet is because I've not met the nice Nigerian guy or the nice Ghanaian guy or the nice Zimbabwean guy. No, don't do that to yourself. Expand your reach, expand your opportunities, expand your experiences. As you do so, those times of loneliness begin to shrink. Like I said, they don't completely go away, but then when you recognize them, you must ask yourself, have I missed out on connection over the last month, over the last week? You know, because my feelings are telling me something and I must pay attention.
So good. Wow. Thank you. Wow. Like I'm just still like wowing. But thank you. I really like what you said around loneliness is connection, isn't it? And yeah,
Yes.
being deliberate, sort of taking responsibility for your own emotions and for how you feel at every point in time, isn't it? And
Yes.
that's powerful. Thank you. And just thinking and just sharing on that, I like when you said, you know, you can take yourself out for dinner, or take yourself out for lunch, treat yourself, you know, and just building on that. What are some of the things we can do while we're waiting to grow ourselves and grow who we are? Because I don't know, but I hear that marriage is a whole different ball game. And let me share with friends today. So I had friends over at my house, you know, for most of today, and I was telling them that I'm so glad that I moved out of my parents' house and I'm living sort of in this home before I got married, because I don't know if I'll have coped. You know, the other day, I don't think I'll have managed. The other day I was chopping tomatoes in the kitchen. And you know, the first evening I chopped the tomatoes, I had made the sauce I was making quickly because I was in a hurry. The next day I found myself in the kitchen again, chopping tomatoes. And I'm like, what is going on? Then I needed to, you know, wash, and I needed to mop the sitting room and sweep. And I'm like, no, this is a culture shock. What is going on here? And that's just an aside, I'm joking.
But you've just opened yourself to an experience, and it's an experience that not everyone gets the opportunity to have. But if you do have the opportunity, you should embrace, because you are literally preparing yourself for where you're going to. You are. And even if you were still living in your parents' house, but once you started to embrace even the things that made your parents' house function, if you began to take responsibility for some of the things that were in your own parents' house, you begin to embrace the journey of marriage. Because think about it, somebody is paying for the electricity, someone's paying for the water, someone's paying the driver that you have, someone, you know, all those things, someone is paying for it, and someone has responsibility and thinking process for that. If you are at home in your parents' house, feel free to pick up one of those thinking processes, just because it gives you the opportunity. It gives you the opportunity to begin to put yourself in the place that you are going to be. Everything that is happening before you get married is a trial run if you will embrace it. But if you don't embrace it, hey, you'll get the biggest shock when you get married.
So good. Pick up one of those thinking processes. Like it's a new thing. Embrace it.
Yeah.
Love it. And Bunmi, now I know, you know, not many people are lucky enough is it lucky enough? I don't know if it's lucky enough, but not many people have the experience, let me use that, of marrying, let's say, their first love. You know, I have a friend, she met her husband when she was, 16 or 17. They got married years later, and it's just such a beautiful story. That's not many people's story, right?
Yeah.
Some people have dealt with a lot of hurt and betrayal and heartbreak, and some people are still healing or maybe haven't healed, and there's just this string of all sorts of things that are not good. Can you speak to that internal work I think that we need to do as women to ensure that we're even ready to receive the kind of love we really say we want to receive?
Yeah. Okay, and I literally just realized I need to go back to your first question, which is what can we do in this season? And you've already started to talk about it, in that there is a lot of internal work that needs to happen in this season. You attract who you are. I think let me start there. So the Bible says in I think it's in Proverbs 23 verse 7, where it says that as a man thinks in his heart, so he is he. The woman that you are today is as a result of who you are on the inside. The experiences that you have today are a result of who you are on the inside. And a lot of people might say, but that's not true. This person hurt me and that thing happened to me. And I hear you, I understand that. But at the same time, who you are on your inside influences the decisions that you make. The decisions that you make influence the actions that you take. The actions that you take influence the experiences that you have, the places that you go, the people that you interact with. Are there things that are outside of our locus of control? Yes. But there is actually a lot that is within our locus of control. And in this season, while you're waiting, including what you asked, the second question, they are within your gift to work on right now. This season is a gift, but it's a gift that has been wrapped up. It is up to you to unwrap it, look inside, and embrace the gift that is inside. Many times we don't. We're literally in this passive waiting phase where we do nothing and then get into marriage and wonder why marriage is dealing with us. Marriage will deal with all of us, whether we've done the internal work or not. But the experience that we all have won't be the same based on the internal work that we've done. So if you've had trauma, for example, if, for example, you were sexually abused, you should deal with that in this season. Think of it as giving your husband the gift of a renewed you. Think of it, and you know, the African culture does not necessarily encourage doing therapy and counseling, especially before marriage. Instead, they want to do counseling after marriage. How about we not need to do counseling after marriage because we did the counseling before marriage?
Okay, now.
How about we not have to do therapy for some certain areas because we did the work before? So in this waiting season, first of all, embrace the season. There's no point, you can't change it. You can't force someone to marry you. And if you do, what will happen is you'll get to the other side and realize that maybe you made a mistake. And that's a sad place and a tough place to be. There are many marriages today that should never have happened. Let's call a spade a spade. So this is the season where you then almost prepare yourself. This is the season where you seek your own healing. You seek your emotional healing. This is the season where you manage your emotions and learn emotional intelligence. This is the season where you learn what it is to be a wife. Even just reading a book about it is a step in the right direction. Being a wife is much more than cooking and cleaning. It is so much more than that. Don't let what our parents told us be the only thing that is what we use to go into marriage. There's so much more.
So good.
There's so much more. How do you manage your in-laws? The only picture you have is of your mother fighting your grandmother. So that's all you know. But is that all there is to in-law relationships? No. That isn't. So spend this time learning about how to manage, you know, how to work with your in-laws, manage your in-laws, love on your in-laws, because sometimes it doesn't even come naturally. Remember that human beings are inherently selfish. So you have to learn how to love other people. Even meshing your life with another person's own, meshing your life with your husband's own is a meshing. It doesn't happen overnight. Trust me, I've been married 6 years, almost 6 years. It doesn't happen overnight. You get there and you're like, whoa, right. I don't like the way you fold your socks. You like the way I fold my socks. You'll be amazed at how the littlest things cause issues. But remember that everything's a trial run. So how are you even managing the relationships you have with your siblings? Trial run. You know, there's so much you can do. This is the season where you fix your finances. Do you think it's, especially in our generation where the man might not be able to carry all the bills and you coming together is supposed to be a gift? And can I talk about that money one just for a quick second? This is the season where you fix your mindset about money, because your money is not your money when you get married. according to the Bible.
When we are breaking our hearts over here, it's
I'm just sticking with the Bible. I'm just sticking with the Bible. Your money is not your money when you get married. It says, and they were naked and unashamed. Nakedness shows vulnerability. It shows you being open to another person.
Can our money be like my money and then his money be like our money? Can we be naked with his money and then,
Right. Okay. You can do that if that's the agreement that both of you have. But then there must still be the openness about this is my money and that's your money. And how do you want us to work it out? Because it is for the purpose of our unit, not just for me. If he tells you that, look, girl, I was already handling all the bills, feel free to keep your money. No problem. But then the day he asks you to bring money to the table, you can't be cross because it's for the purpose of your unit. It's for the purpose of both of you and your children that when they come. So fix your mindset about money. Fix your money, fix your bank balance. If your bank balance is in the negative, this is the season to start to work on how to get it back into the positive. This is also the season where you learn how to be hospitable. Plenty of people are going to come to your house when you're married, unless you marry a recluse, and very rarely do we marry an absolute recluse. We always marry somebody that had a family too. So how are you going to host his family when they come? How are you going to host both your families when both of your families are in the same zone? There's so much to learn in this season. And I'm not saying that you will have a complete package before you get in, but at least start the journey so that when you get to the other side, you're not completely thrown by your experience. And this is also the season to build capacity. This is the season to build capacity even in your spiritual life, because marriage is spiritual. You are a spirit being having a human experience. So your marriage is also the same. It's a spiritual experience. And marriage will, should I go there? Marriage will kill your flesh. So build capacity for letting your flesh die now. Your boss at work annoys you, suck it up. So far as they're not hurting you, suck it up. Build capacity. How am I going to manage my boss that is annoying me? Am I going to run? Am I going to, am I going to ditch things when things get tough? Do I quit my job just because my boss is annoying me? If you learn to build capacity when your boss is annoying you and you're not quitting your every role, you're changing roles every 6 months, every year because somebody's annoying you. You need to build capacity. It's training for your marriage, because when you get married, you can't walk away just like that. Marriage is a covenant, it's not a contract. But we go into that in my Waiting Gracefully program. There's so much that there is to
love it.
There's so much to learn in this season, and you can't learn it all just by what I've said in this podcast. So definitely come on my Waiting Gracefully program.
Oh, talk to us a bit about that, Bunmi. Tell us all about the Waiting Gracefully program, which I'm enrolled onto, FYI. So,
Bodam is a wise woman. She knows exactly what she wants. So she came for the right thing. And the Waiting Gracefully program is literally helping you to go through this season so that you build capacity and, you learn what you're supposed to learn, so that when you do, first of all, so that you are able to position yourself for the marriage that God has for you, able to position yourself for the man that God has for you, but also prepare yourself for where you're going to. It's a 3-month program. And in the program we go in, it literally is broken down into like a 5-step system or like a 4-step system, depending on which one you prefer. Where we first of all go deep into understanding this season. What does this season mean? And what would make this season successful for you? One of the things that I share with the ladies in the program is that when we're understanding this season, is that the woman that you become is the biggest success of this season. But then we literally unpack that in the program. And then I talk about how you become that whole becoming the woman that you're supposed to be happens as you align yourself with who God has said you are. And I call that being restored to royalty, because really you're God's daughter and your father is a king. You're a princess. So we're only just helping you step back in. Life has happened to all of us. Some of us have dropped our crowns. Some of us, our crowns are crooked. And, in this season, what you're meant to be doing is literally, if you've dropped your crown, picking it up, putting it back on and saying, you know what, I'm a princess. I only want a prince, and holding myself up for a prince rather than a commoner. It's also one of the other things that you learn in the program is that this is a season for building capacity, as I said. So building capacity spiritually, and I equip you, I show you how to build yourself for the mental side of things, how to build yourself emotionally, how to sort out your finances. And we go into things like budgeting and all of those kind of things. And then how do I recognize the man when he comes along? Because many of us, we've met guys, but are they the right guy for us? How do we know the right person for us? Do you know there's a whole process behind knowing the right person, and it's way before you ever meet him. It's so much more before you meet him. In the program, we go into who he is, what you should be looking out for, how to date him, and even how to do courtship, because courtship is important. I know our generation is all about, let's date, let's see how we're going, let's see where we're going. Sorry, no, we don't do that. We're graceful women. We do things slightly different. Just like Bodam is a refined lady. We do things different. We just do things different, especially as daughters of the king. We do things different. So that's what the program is about, and much more.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So you can check out the program, www.bunmioduah.com/WG. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Fantastic. So I will put it also in the caption of the podcast. So you can just click on it and it will take you straight to her. Obviously, you ladies know that I can already go on and on and on just chatting with them, because first, she's so easy to talk to. Secondly, she's so knowledgeable about this whole waiting gracefully thing. And she's not just telling us things that she's read in a book. She's telling us stuff that she has practiced and she's gone through. She understands the journey that, every woman who's waiting is on. And most importantly, she has emerged victorious on the other side.
Yes, I have.
And while we're on that journey, I think it's just to embrace where we are, love it, not just embrace it and endure it, but love this season and really just become your best self. Bunmi, before I let you go, just give us one more word, one last jaw-dropping piece of advice, one last piece of encouragement. Just tell us one last thing about how we should be gracefully waiting. No, how we should wait gracefully. What am I speaking?
Whichever way you put it, it's still the same thing. If there was anything I would say that seek purpose. Seek to be purposeful about this season, but also seek to know your purpose. Why? Because a woman in purpose and a woman on purpose is attractive. And when when you're attractive, guess what you do? You attract the right type of people to you. The purpose puts you in alignment. It's one of the things that, we talk about in the program, but purpose actually puts you in alignment so that when you get to the point where you're supposed to meet your husband, because you're in alignment, you're connecting with the right people. You're not just meeting, and it doesn't mean that you won't meet some characters, because there are a lot of distractions on the way. But when you're walking in purpose and you're walking on purpose, there's a way that you kind of look with eyes straight ahead. It's the same way that if you're swimming and you want to get to the other end of the pool, you can't afford to keep looking left and right, because if you do that, you will slow yourself down, especially if you're in a race, and you really don't want to slow yourself down on your own race. You don't want to do that. So definitely seek to be purposeful about this season, but also seek to be on purpose and in purpose.
I love it. Seek to be purposeful, seek to be on purpose and in purpose. Fantastic. Bunmi, thank you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
You're welcome.
Right humor. Thank you for breaking some of those tables as well. We really needed it. It was so great having this conversation with you. And I look forward to us obviously taking this a lot more. I'm obviously going to invite you back, maybe not here, maybe on the YouTube channel, wherever it is. But thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Ladies, that is it for today. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Share this episode with all your friends, those who are waiting not so gracefully. to help them so that we can all get on this waiting gracefully journey together. Don't forget to check out Bunmi Oduah's program, www.bunmioduah.com/WG. I will see you soon. Until then, take care and stay beautiful. Bye.